It's just past 11 p.m. on November 14, 1942. The waters north of Guadalcanal Island lie black and still, broken only by the wakes of 4 American warships slicing through the dark. Rear Admiral Willis Lee stands on the bridge of the battleship USS Washington, his eyes fixed on the radar screen glowing faintly beside him. Behind Washington steams her sister battleship, USS South Dakota, a floating fortress of steel and firepower. Screening them both are 4 destroyers, USS Walk, USS Benham, USS Preston, and USS Gwynn. Lee knows what's coming. A Japanese fleet is pushing south, determined to smash the American lines and bombard Henderson Field into rubble. Lee has one mission, and one mission only: stop them, whatever the cost. Just a few miles ahead, the Imperial Japanese Navy churns forward through the darkness. Vice Admiral Nobutake Kondo, aboard the heavy cruiser Atego, studies his charts with quiet confidence. His force is powerful, built around the battlecruiser Kirishima and screened by the cruisers Atego and Takao. Kondo's orders are simple: destroy any American ships in his path, then reduce the airfield to ash. He has done this before. He sees no reason tonight should be any different. Aboard South Dakota, Captain Thomas Gatch feels the tension thick in the air. His crew is ready, his 16-inch guns loaded, his radar operators glued to their screens. But deep within the ship, an unseen danger is about to strike. As South Dakota begins a sharp turn to avoid a wrecked destroyer drifting in her path, her electrical system suddenly fails. Lights flicker and die across the ship. Radar screens go black. Gun turrets freeze in place, unable to traverse. For several terrifying minutes, the mightiest battleship in the American fleet is blind, deaf, and defenseless, drifting helplessly in enemy waters. "Sir, we've lost power to the aft turrets," an officer shouts into the darkness. Captain Gatch grips the railing, his knuckles white. "Get it back, now." Engineers scramble below decks, wrenches in hand, fighting against time itself. Power flickers back on, only to fail again moments later. Each failure costs South Dakota precious seconds. Seconds she does not have. Meanwhile, chaos erupts at the front of the American formation. The destroyer USS Walk spots enemy contacts dead ahead. Enemy ships, bearing 010. The lookout calls. Within moments, muzzle flashes rip through the night as Japanese destroyers open fire at point-blank range. Walk is struck again and again, her hull torn open, flames licking up her superstructure. She begins to list, taking on water fast. Preston fares no better. Shells crash into her boiler rooms, and within minutes she is dead in the water, burning from bow to stern. Benham takes a torpedo to her bow, the explosion ripping away her forward section entirely, leaving her crippled and unable to fight. In a matter of minutes, 3 of Lee's 4 destroyers are shattered wrecks. Aboard Washington, Admiral Lee watches the disaster unfold on radar, his jaw tight. He knows the destroyers were sacrificed, whether by design or by fate, and he cannot afford to lose his battleships too. Steady on course, he orders. We press forward. Washington's guns remain silent for now, her radar tracking targets in the darkness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Back aboard South Dakota, the electrical crisis finally passes. Power surges back through her circuits, and her turrets groan back to life. But the delay has cost her dearly. As she moves to rejoin the formation, the burning wreck of the destroyer Benham drifts past her hull, its flames casting a harsh orange glow across the water. And in that glow, South Dakota is suddenly, terribly visible. Aboard the Japanese cruiser Atego, a lookout shouts in triumph. Enemy battleship illuminated, bearing 270. Kondo's eyes widen. A prize beyond measure sits silhouetted before him, lit up like a target on a firing range. All ships, concentrate fire on the enemy battleship. He orders. Searchlights snap on across the Japanese formation, beams cutting through the night and locking onto South Dakota's hull. Within seconds, the sky erupts in gunfire. Captain Gatch braces himself as the first shells scream in. Return fire! Everything we've got! South Dakota's main guns roar to life, 16-inch shells thundering out into the darkness. But she is alone, isolated, and lit up for every Japanese gunner to see. Shells begin slamming into her superstructure, one after another, the impacts shaking the massive ship to her keel. A shell strikes her main battery director, shattering it instantly and killing the men inside. Another tears through her radio room, severing communications across half the ship. Fires break out along her upper decks, spreading fast, fed by ammunition and fuel. "Sir, we're taking heavy damage topside," an officer shouts over the roar of battle. Gatch grits his teeth. Keep those guns firing. We are not going down tonight. Down in the engine rooms, sailors fight desperately to keep the ship moving, sweat pouring down their faces as the deck lurches beneath explosion after explosion. Above them, South Dakota's crew battles blazing fires with hoses and sheer will, dragging wounded shipmates to safety even as shells continue to fall. Kondo watches from Atego, certain that the American battleship is finished. Shell after shell finds its mark, tearing through her superstructure, wrecking her fire control systems, killing dozens of sailors in horrific fashion. Smoke pours from a dozen fires across her deck. To any observer, South Dakota looks like a dying ship, a burning hulk waiting for the sea to claim her. But beneath the flames and wreckage, something remarkable is happening. Not a single shell has struck below her waterline. Her engines still turn. Her rudder still answers. Battered almost beyond recognition, South Dakota refuses to die. While Kondo's attention remains fixed on the burning battleship, he makes a fatal mistake. He has forgotten about Washington. Admiral Lee, watching the slaughter of South Dakota from a distance, makes his move. Washington's radar has been tracking the battlecruiser Kirishima this entire time, undetected in the confusion of battle. Stand by to open fire, Lee orders quietly. His gunnery officer double-checks the firing solution one final time. Then, at point-blank range, Washington unleashes her full fury. 16-inch shells scream across the water and slam into Kirishima with devastating precision. The first salvo alone tears through her superstructure, igniting massive fires. Salvo after salvo follows, each one finding its mark with terrifying accuracy. Kirishima's crew scrambles in desperation, but there is little they can do. Her steering gear is destroyed. Her rudder jams hard over, sending her into a helpless circle. Fires rage from bow to stern, consuming the once proud battlecruiser. Within minutes, Kirishima is a burning, crippled wreck, completely out of the fight. Kondo, stunned by the sudden reversal, realizes too late that the second American battleship has entered the battle. Enemy battleship to the northwest, engaging Kirishima. A lookout cries out in alarm. Kondo has no time to react. Washington's guns have already done their work. With his flagship force reeling and Kirishima mortally wounded, Kondo makes the only choice left to him. He orders a full retreat. As the Japanese ships withdraw into the darkness, South Dakota limps away from the battle, her decks scorched black, her superstructure a twisted ruin of metal and glass. Smoke still rises from a dozen fires across her hull. 250 of her crew are dead or wounded, casualties of one of the most brutal close-range naval engagements of the entire war. And yet, remarkably, she is still afloat, still moving under her own power, still, somehow, alive. Captain Gatch surveys the wreckage of his ship as dawn begins to break over the Pacific. Twisted steel litters the deck. Bloodstains mark where his sailors fell, but the ship beneath his feet holds firm. Damage report, he asks quietly. An exhausted officer replies, 26 hits recorded, sir. All above the waterline. We are still seaworthy. Gatch allows himself a small, weary nod. Against every expectation, against a night that should have sent her to the bottom of the sea, South Dakota has survived. As the sun rises over Guadalcanal, the scale of the night's carnage becomes clear. 3 American destroyers lie wrecked or sinking, their crews fighting for survival in the water. But the mission has succeeded. Kirishima, crippled beyond repair, is scuttled by her own crew rather than fall into American hands. The Japanese bombardment fleet has been turned back, and Henderson Field remains intact, safe for another day. The naval battle of Guadalcanal marks a turning point in the Pacific War, the moment American naval power began to overtake the Imperial Japanese Navy in the deadly waters surrounding the Solomon Islands. South Dakota sails home for repairs, her hull scarred, her superstructure rebuilt piece by piece. For security reasons, the Navy conceals her identity from the public, and newspapers across America simply refer to her as Battleship X, the mystery ship that took 26 hits and refused to sink. Sailors who serve aboard her carry the story for the rest of their lives, a testament to American shipbuilding and to the sheer stubborn courage of the men who kept her afloat when everything seemed lost. Today, South Dakota's story stands as one of the most remarkable tales of survival in naval history. A ship crippled by her own electrical failure at the worst possible moment, lit up like a beacon for enemy gunners, pounded by shell after shell in one of the most concentrated barrages ever endured by an American warship, and yet she did not break. She did not sink. She carried her crew home, battered but unbowed, proof that sometimes the difference between victory and disaster comes down not to luck, but to the will of the men who refused to let their ship go down.